Welcome back to another episode of Healthy Kidneys After 60. I am your host, Jane Pauley. Every morning, many of us follow a familiar ritual. We brew a cup of tea, toast some bread, and then we reach for those colorful plastic bottles sitting right there on the kitchen counter. We swallow those capsules with a sense of security, believing we are buying ourselves a little more time, a little more energy, a little more life. But what if that very ritual is quietly undermining the health we are trying so hard to protect? Today, we are joined by a man who has dedicated his life to understanding the intricate workings of the human body and the science of longevity. He is the chief medical correspondent for CNN and an associate professor at Emory University, a voice of clarity in a world of medical noise. Please welcome my dear friend, Dr. Sanjay Gupta.
It is such a pleasure to be here with you, Jane, and with everyone listening at home. You touched on something so profound right at the start, that kitchen counter ritual. It is born out of love for ourselves and our families, a desire to stay present for our grandchildren and to keep our independence. But in my years of practice and in looking at the latest clinical data, I have seen far too many people over 60 who are unintentionally complicating their health by following advice that was never meant for them. I am here today because I want to help you peel back the labels on those bottles and look at the hard truths of what our bodies actually need as we age versus what we have been told we need. I hope by the end of our conversation, everyone listening feels a little less anxious and a lot more empowered about the choices they make every single morning.
Sanjay, as I was preparing for our conversation today, I found myself standing in front of my own medicine cabinet, looking at a bottle of multivitamins I have been taking for years without a second thought. I felt this strange wave of conflict, a mix of comfort because it's a habit, but also a sudden, sharp chill of fear. It's a fear I think many of our listeners share, the fear that we are fading, that our memory isn't what it used to be, or that our hearts are getting tired. And so we grab these supplements like a life vest in a stormy sea. We see these vibrant advertisements with seniors hiking or playing tennis, and the labels promise us immune support or anti-aging formulas, and we think, well, if one pill is good, two must be better, right? We treat these supplements as if they are harmless insurance policies, but as we cross that 60-year mark, our internal chemistry changes so much. Our kidneys, our liver, they don't process things the way they did at 30. I want to ask you, is it possible that our obsession with more is better is actually accelerating the very aging process we are trying to outrun? Are we inadvertently clogging the very systems, like our kidneys, that are supposed to keep us clean and vibrant?
Jane, that image of the life vest is so powerful because that is exactly how it feels. But if a life vest is too heavy or strapped on incorrectly, it can actually pull you under instead of keeping you afloat. The reality that we often ignore is that the supplement industry is a multi-billion-dollar machine built on the concept of perceived deficiency. We are told that we are missing something and that a pill can fix it. But when we look at high-level medical evidence, such as the findings from the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, the picture is much more sobering. For a healthy person over 60, taking high doses of things like beta-carotene or vitamin E with the hope of preventing major diseases can not only be ineffective, it can be harmful. I remember a conversation I had with a colleague recently about how the body handles these concentrated doses. Think of your body like a vintage car. When you were 20, the engine could handle a lot of different additives and still run smoothly. But after 60, the engine is more refined, but also more sensitive. The kidneys, which act as the body's ultimate filtration system, have to work much harder to process synthetic vitamins that the body doesn't actually need. When you flood the system with mega doses, you aren't just peeing out the excess, as people like to joke. You are forcing your organs to deal with metabolic waste products that can lead to oxidative stress. It's a cruel irony. You take an antioxidant to prevent aging, but if the dose is too high and your body can't clear it, you might actually be causing the kind of cellular damage that makes you feel older, more fatigued, and more worn out. I have seen patients who come in with vague symptoms, brain fog, digestive issues, or just a lingering sense of exhaustion, and they are shocked when the first thing I do isn't prescribe a new drug, but rather ask them to stop taking half of the supplements they bought at the grocery store. We have to shift our mindset from supplementing by default to supplementing by design. Today, I want to walk everyone through why specific things like synthetic beta-carotene can be a major red flag, and why vitamin E isn't the heart saver we once thought it was at high doses. We aren't just talking about wasted money here, we are talking about protecting the integrity of your organs.
It is so jarring to hear that, Sanjay. The idea that my protection could be a burden is a hard pill to swallow, no pun intended. I think about my friends who share tips on the latest super vitamin they found online, and there is such a sense of peer pressure among seniors to stay on top of it. We are terrified of being the one who let themselves go. But what you're saying is that the most on top of it thing we can do is actually pause and look at the science. It makes me wonder about the psychological toll as well, the anxiety of trying to manage 20 different pills a day. Is there a way for us to find a middle ground? If someone is listening right now and they are looking at their row of vitamin bottles with new suspicion, what is the first thing they should understand about how their 60-plus-year-old body is reacting differently to these pills than it did when they were younger?
The first thing to understand is that natural does not always mean safe in concentrated forms. When you eat a carrot, you are getting beta-carotene in a complex matrix of fiber and other nutrients that your body knows how to pace and absorb. But when you take a high-potency synthetic pill, it's like a flash flood hitting a dry creek bed. Your body doesn't have the infrastructure to manage that sudden surge. After 60, our stomach acid levels often drop, which changes how we break these pills down, and our kidney filtration rate naturally declines. This means substances stay in our bloodstream longer, increasing the risk of toxicity. We are going to talk about 4 very specific supplements today that I believe many people over 60 should treat with extreme caution. Some they should likely avoid altogether, unless a doctor has found a clinical deficiency. We're also going to talk about the 4 things that actually do make sense, but only if they are the right form and the right dose. It's about precision. We have to stop being guinea pigs for marketing campaigns and start being the CEOs of our own biological health. It starts with the realization that the best medicine doesn't always come in a plastic bottle. Sometimes the best medicine is the decision to stop taking something that is doing more harm than good.
Sanjay, I think one of the most heartbreaking things I hear from our listeners is this quiet resignation to feeling unwell, as if hitting 70 means you must accept being exhausted and bruised as part of the deal. Many people reach out to me saying they feel their heart fluttering, or they notice dark bruises on their arms that take weeks to heal, but they just shrug it off because they don't want to bother their doctors with what they think are the inevitable signs of getting old. They often tell me they have actually increased their intake of certain supplements like vitamin E because they heard it's an antioxidant that protects the heart and clears the arteries. It seems so logical to them that if they feel weak, they should just add more of these protective shields to their daily routine, yet they don't realize they might be walking into a very dangerous trap. Why is it that this specific habit of self-prescribing high-dose antioxidants like vitamin E is so prevalent among the elderly? And what are the hidden consequences that they are missing while they focus on trying to save their hearts?
You hit on something very deep there, Jane, because that resignation is often fueled by a misunderstood sense of self-care. I remember a specific case that really illustrates this danger. George Miller, a 72-year-old gentleman living at 1842 Seaside Palm Drive in Clearwater, Florida, came to see me because he was terrified he was developing a serious blood disorder or a failing heart. George was a vibrant man, but he started noticing these large, unexplained bruises on his forearms, and he felt this strange skip-beat sensation in his chest every time he climbed the stairs. He told me he had doubled his vitamin E dosage to 800 IU a day because he read in a health magazine that it would scrub his blood vessels clean. What George didn't realize is that vitamin E at high doses, specifically anything over 400 IU per day, can act as a mild blood thinner and has been linked in several clinical trials to an increased risk of hemorrhagic stroke and heart failure. For someone like George, that heart protection was actually making his blood too thin and putting an immense strain on his cardiovascular system. It is a classic example of how a good intention can turn into a medical crisis when we ignore the physiological limits of our bodies.
It's terrifying to think that George thought he was doing the right thing for his family by staying healthy, only to end up in your office with symptoms that looked like a life-threatening illness. When we look at the word antioxidant, it sounds so heroic, like a tiny soldier fighting off the rust of old age. But you are saying these soldiers can turn on us if there are too many of them. If someone is sitting in their living room right now, looking at their bruised skin or feeling that same fluttering in their chest that George felt, how can they distinguish between the normal wear and tear of a long life and a toxic reaction to the very vitamins they are buying at the health store? Is there a specific threshold where the benefit ends and the toxicity begins that every person over 60 needs to be aware of before they take their next dose?
The threshold is much lower than the marketing labels would have you believe, and that is the core of the problem. In George's case, he was convinced that more was better. But the science published in journals like PubMed shows that high-dose vitamin E supplementation doesn't provide the cardiovascular benefits people hope for and might even increase all-cause mortality. When George sat in my office and showed me those bruises, he was shocked when I told him to stop the vitamin E immediately. Within 2 weeks, his bruising stopped and his heart palpitations settled down because his blood's clotting ability returned to a normal, safe level. The danger is that vitamin E is fat soluble, meaning your body doesn't just flush it out like vitamin C, it stores it in your tissues, building up like a silent toxin. My warning to everyone is this: if you are taking a supplement that lists high potency or provides several 100% of your daily value, you aren't just taking a vitamin, you are taking a drug without a prescription. You must look for signs like unusual bleeding, dizziness, or a sudden change in your heart rhythm, and instead of reaching for another pill, you need to bring those bottles to your physician and ask for a comprehensive blood panel to see what is actually happening inside.
So many of us are guilty of this, Sanjay, thinking we can outsmart aging with a bottle of pills from the pharmacy shelf. George's story is a wake-up call because it shows that our kidneys and our hearts are not just passive recipients of these supplements, they are active processors that can be overwhelmed. As we move forward, I want to dive into other common beliefs, like the idea that certain vitamins can protect our lungs or our eyes. Because if vitamin E can do this to a man like George, I fear what else we might be mismanaging in our quest to stay young. What should be the absolute rule of thumb for a senior who is currently taking a multivitamin that might contain these high levels of E?
The absolute rule is to never exceed the recommended dietary allowance unless a blood test has proven you are deficient. Most people over 60 get plenty of vitamin E from nuts, seeds, and leafy greens, and the body prefers it in that natural, balanced form. When we isolate it and supersize it in a capsule, we bypass the body's natural regulatory systems. George Miller's recovery was simple. He stopped the supplement and focused on a balanced diet. But many people aren't as lucky because they keep increasing the dose, thinking their worsening symptoms mean they need even more protection. We have to break that cycle of fear and replace it with a cycle of clinical evidence. If you feel tired or notice your skin changing, don't assume it's just age, and don't assume a vitamin will fix it. Those symptoms are your body's way of asking for a professional evaluation, not a higher dose of a synthetic antioxidant.
Sanjay, there is a very specific type of anxiety that comes with aging, and that is the fear of our senses failing us, our vision blurring, or our breath becoming short. It leads so many people to search for anything labeled vision support or lung health, and they often land on supplements containing high amounts of beta-carotene. There's a long-standing belief that because carrots are good for your eyes, a concentrated pill of beta-carotene must be a miracle for preventing cancer or macular degeneration. But I've been reading some quite disturbing reports that suggest for certain groups, especially those who have a history of smoking or environmental exposure, these supplements might actually be doing the exact opposite of what they promise. How did we get to a point where a nutrient we associate with health and vitality could potentially become a catalyst for something as terrifying as lung cancer?
This is one of the most significant and misunderstood reversals in nutritional science, Jane. For decades, we thought beta-carotene was a universal shield, an antioxidant that would mop up free radicals and prevent tumors. But the landmark CARROT study and other research published in the New England Journal of Medicine delivered a shocking blow to that theory. They found that in people at high risk for lung cancer, such as heavy smokers or those exposed to asbestos, high-dose beta-carotene supplements actually increase the incidence of lung cancer and mortality. It was a staggering discovery because it proved that the body's chemistry is not a simple equation. In the high oxygen environment of the lungs, a large amount of synthetic beta-carotene can actually turn into a pro-oxidant, which promotes cellular damage rather than preventing it. It's like throwing gasoline on a fire you were trying to extinguish. This is particularly relevant for the over 60 population because many in this generation grew up in an era where smoking was common, and their lungs may already have underlying vulnerabilities that these supplements can exploit.
It is deeply unsettling to realize that someone could be trying to protect their lungs after years of smoking, only to unknowingly increase their risk by taking a health supplement. This brings up a vital distinction that I think many of our listeners struggle with: the difference between the nutrients we get from a plate of food and the ones we get from a plastic bottle. If I eat a bowl of sweet potatoes or a pile of spinach, am I putting myself at the same risk as if I took a beta-carotene capsule? And for those who aren't smokers but are over 60 and taking these vision formulas that are packed with carotenoids, should they be worried about this pro-oxidant effect as well?
That is a crucial distinction, Jane. There has never been a study showing that eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables increases cancer risk. In fact, it's the opposite. When you eat a carrot, you aren't just getting beta-carotene, you're getting hundreds of other carotenoids, fibers, and enzymes that work in harmony. The body knows how to regulate the conversion of food-based beta-carotene into vitamin A. But when you isolate that one compound and deliver it in a massive synthetic dose, you overwhelm that harmony. Regarding vision, while certain formulations like the IRED-S2 vitamins are used for specific types of macular degeneration, they specifically removed beta-carotene from the later versions and replaced it with lutein and zeaxanthin because of these very safety concerns. For the average person over 60, taking a high-dose beta-carotene supplement is simply not worth the gamble. If you want to protect your eyes and your lungs, go to the farmer's market, not the supplement aisle. The risk is real, and the benefit of the synthetic version for general health has largely been debunked by the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, which now recommends against using it for the prevention of cardiovascular disease or cancer.
It seems we are uncovering a pattern here that the more we try to concentrate nature into a pill, the more we risk upsetting the delicate balance of our aging bodies. It makes me think about how many people have these bottles in their cabinets right now, thinking they are being proactive. If someone has been taking these for years, is the damage already done? Or is there hope in simply stopping and returning to a whole food approach? And how do we navigate the sheer amount of marketing that still pushes these lung and vision boosters as if the science you just mentioned doesn't exist?
There is always hope, Jane, because the body has an incredible capacity to recalibrate once you remove the source of the stress. The first step is to look at the ingredients list on your multivitamin. If you see beta-carotene as a primary source of vitamin A, especially in high amounts, it's time to have a serious conversation with your doctor. The marketing is powerful because it plays on our deepest fears of decline, but science is the only thing that can provide a real safety net. We have to be skeptical of mega doses. We have to understand that our bodies at 65 are not looking for a revolution. They are looking for a steady, gentle supply of nutrients that they can easily recognize and use. By shifting back to a diet-first approach, you aren't just avoiding risk. You are giving your kidneys and liver a much-needed break from processing synthetic chemicals. It's about returning to the basics that have sustained humanity for thousands of years, rather than trusting a laboratory-made shortcut that hasn't stood the test of time.
Sanjay, I want to talk about a mistake that feels so logical, it's almost impossible to argue with on the surface. We have so many listeners who tell us that they just feel heavy or drained all the time. They wake up tired, they struggle to get through their afternoon walk, and the first thing their friends or family suggest is, hey, maybe you're anemic, you should take some iron. It sounds like the perfect solution. Iron for energy, iron for the blood. But I've heard you mention that for seniors, especially those who aren't losing blood through a specific medical condition, taking extra iron can be like pouring salt into a wound. It's a terrifying thought that something we associate with strength could actually be accumulating in our organs and causing silent damage. Why is iron so different for us after 60, and what should we be looking for instead of just reaching for that high iron multivitamin?
This is a silent crisis in geriatric nutrition, Jane, because iron is a double-edged sword. Unlike many other minerals, the human body has no active way to excrete excess iron. Once it's in there, it stays there unless you lose blood. I saw this firsthand with a patient named Margaret Collins, a 74-year-old woman from 2331 Red River Lane in Austin, Texas. Margaret was a retired teacher who started feeling sluggish and a bit forgetful. She assumed she was low on iron and started taking a daily multivitamin that included 18 milligaules of iron, and eventually she even added a dedicated iron supplement on top of that. She did this for 3 years. When she finally came to me, her energy wasn't better, it was worse. She had developed joint pain and her liver enzymes were elevated. When we ran a ferritin test, her iron stores were through the roof. She didn't have low blood, she had iron overload, a condition that was slowly causing oxidative damage to her liver and heart. For a postmenopausal woman like Margaret, or for most men over 60, the daily iron requirement is actually quite low because they aren't losing blood through menstruation or rapid growth.
Margaret's story is so relatable because she was just trying to get her energy back so she could enjoy her retirement. It's heartbreaking to think that her cure was actually the cause of her joint pain and liver issues. It makes me wonder about the millions of other Margarets out there who are self-diagnosing. If someone is feeling that profound fatigue, that bone-deep tiredness, what are the steps they should take to find the real cause? If it's not iron deficiency, what are the more likely culprits for people in our age group? And why is a simple blood test so much more important than a trip to the supplement aisle?
Fatigue in your 70s is rarely a simple lack of one mineral. It can be related to thyroid function, underlying heart issues, sleep apnea, or even a deficiency in B12, which we will discuss later. But the danger of Margaret's approach is that iron is a potent oxidant. When it accumulates in the liver, heart, or pancreas, it can lead to permanent scarring and dysfunction. In Margaret's case, we had to immediately stop all iron-containing supplements and monitor her levels closely. The irony is that the symptoms of iron overload, fatigue, and weakness often mimic the symptoms of iron deficiency. So people like Margaret keep taking more iron, thinking they haven't fixed the problem yet, while they are actually making it much worse. I tell my patients, never ever take an iron supplement unless a doctor has performed a full iron panel, including ferritin and transferrin saturation, and specifically told you that you are deficient. For most seniors, a multivitamin that is iron-free is actually the much safer choice. We have to stop guessing with our biology.
Iron-free is a phrase I think many of us haven't even looked for on a label, because we've been told since childhood that iron makes us strong, like Popeye. It's a total shift in perspective. If someone is looking at their multivitamin right now and they see iron listed, but they don't have a diagnosed deficiency, is that small daily amount enough to cause the kind of buildup Margaret experienced, or does it only happen with high-dose supplements? And what should they say to their doctor if they want to get this checked out properly without sounding like they are overreacting to a podcast?
Even the small amount in a daily multivitamin can add up over years, especially in men and postmenopausal women. It's a slow, cumulative process. If you've been taking it for a decade, your stores could be significantly higher than they should be. When you talk to your doctor, just be honest. Say, I've been taking a supplement with iron for a long time, and I've learned that as I get older, my body might be storing too much of it. Can we check my ferritin levels during my next blood draw just to be sure? Any good physician will appreciate that proactive approach. We found that once Margaret's iron levels started to stabilize, her joint pain actually improved. Her body was finally able to start repairing the oxidative stress. It's a powerful lesson. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your health is to get out of your body's way and stop giving it things it doesn't need. We have to respect the fact that after 60, our bodies are masterful at recycling what they have, and adding more of certain elements like iron can actually break the machine.
Sanjay, I'm looking at this bottle in my hand, and it's what I call a mega multivitamin. The label is crowded with dozens of vitamins, minerals, and herbal blends, and it claims to be specifically designed for people over 50 or 60. It feels like such a safety net, one pill to cover everything, so I don't have to worry. But as we've been talking, I'm starting to realize that this everything but the kitchen sink approach might be a massive marketing trap. We want to believe that we are being comprehensive, but instead, we might be creating a chemical soup in our bodies that our kidneys simply can't handle. Is there any solid scientific evidence that these broad multivitamins actually prevent heart disease or cancer in older adults, or have we all been sold a very expensive and potentially dangerous bill of goods?
Jane, I hate to be the bearer of disappointing news, but the scientific consensus is quite clear on this. Major reviews, including those from the U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, have looked at decades of data and concluded that for the average healthy adult, there is insufficient evidence that taking a multivitamin significantly reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease or cancer. In fact, for certain components we've already discussed, like beta-carotene and vitamin E, the recommendation is a flat-out no because of the risks. The mega multivitamin is often a triumph of marketing over medicine. These companies compete to see who can put the highest percentages on the label, but your body doesn't work on a more is better percentage system. When you take a pill that has 500% of your daily value of 5 different things, you are essentially asking your kidneys to perform a marathon every single day to filter out the excess. For a 70-year-old whose kidney function might already be at 60% or 70% of what it was in their youth, this isn't a safety net, it's a burden.
It's a hard truth to hear, especially for those of us who have spent hundreds of dollars on these bottles over the years. We feel like we are doing our homework, but the mega doses are actually making our internal systems work overtime. I think about the psychological aspect too. If we take a multivitamin, we might feel allowed to eat a poorer diet or skip our walk because the pill has me covered. That seems like a very dangerous trade-off. If the mega pill isn't the answer, how should we be thinking about our nutritional gaps? Is it better to be undersupplemented and rely on our dinner plate? Or is there a way to be precise without being overwhelmed by a dozen different bottles?
The trade-off you mentioned is exactly what we call the licensing effect in psychology, where doing one good thing makes us feel okay about doing several bad things. But a pill can never replace the thousands of phytochemicals found in a Mediterranean-style diet. I often see patients who are over-supplemented but undernourished. They have high levels of synthetic vitamins in their blood, but they are missing the fiber, the healthy fats, and the natural antioxidants that come from real food. The mega pill approach is a blunt instrument. What we need at this stage of life is a scalpel. Instead of a broad multivitamin, we should be looking at targeted supplementation based on actual proven needs. For example, many seniors are legitimately low in vitamin D or B12, but you don't need a mega multivitamin to fix that. You need a specific high-quality supplement in the right dose. When you see a label that says high potency or maximum strength, that should be a warning sign, not a selling point. It means the manufacturer is trying to impress you with numbers rather than health outcomes.
It sounds like we need to become much more discerning readers of these labels. If someone is standing in the aisle right now, overwhelmed by the choices, what are the red flags they should look for on a multivitamin bottle? Are there specific ingredients or phrases that should make them put the bottle back on the shelf immediately? And for those who have been taking these mega doses for a long time, is there a safe way to transition back to a more minimalist approach without shocking their system?
The first red flag is anything that claims to be a cure or total support for a major organ like the heart or liver. The second is the presence of synthetic beta-carotene, especially if you have any history of lung issues or smoking. The third is a list of ingredients where the percent daily value is consistently over 100% or 200%. Your body doesn't need that much on a daily basis if you are eating any kind of balanced diet. To transition, you don't necessarily need to detox, but you should have a supplement audit with your doctor. Bring every single bottle into your next appointment. Lay them out on the table and ask, why am I taking this? Is there a clinical reason? You will be surprised how many of those bottles your doctor will tell you to stop taking. Most of my patients find that they feel better, not worse, when they simplify their routine. They have more energy because their bodies aren't constantly trying to process a mountain of synthetic chemicals. It's about quality over quantity, and at 70, quality is the only thing that matters.
Sanjay, I want to talk about the signals our bodies send us that we often misinterpret. It's so easy to blame a dizzy spell on standing up too fast or a bit of confusion on having a senior moment. We've become so accustomed to the idea that aging is a process of decline that we ignore the very real warning lights on our internal dashboard. But as we've learned today, sometimes those warning lights aren't about age at all. They are about the things we are putting into our bodies. It's a chilling thought that we could be suffering from vitamin toxicity, and yet we keep taking the vitamins because we think they will help the symptoms they are actually causing. How can we tell the difference between a natural part of getting older and a cry for help from an overworked liver or a struggling set of kidneys?
This is where we have to become very quiet and listen to what the body is actually saying rather than what we expect it to say. I think about Robert Jenkins, a 68-year-old man from 5109 West Maple Avenue in Phoenix, Arizona. Robert was a former heavy smoker who had been quit for 10 years, but he was constantly worried about his lung health. He started taking a specialized lung support supplement that was packed with beta-carotene and vitamin E, along with a few other herbs. After a few months, Robert didn't feel more vital. He felt off. He had a persistent dry cough that he thought was a sign he needed more supplements, but he also started feeling strangely confused and weak in his muscles. When he finally came to see me, his skin had a slight yellowish tint, and his liver enzymes were significantly elevated. Robert wasn't aging poorly. He was experiencing the early stages of supplement-induced liver strain. His body was screaming for him to stop, but he was so focused on preventing cancer that he didn't realize he was poisoning his liver.
Robert's story is so frightening because his symptoms, the cough, the confusion, were things he probably thought he was preventing. It's a cruel paradox. You mentioned his skin had a yellowish tint, which I know can be a sign of jaundice or liver issues. For someone like Robert, who is trying so hard to stay healthy after a history of smoking, it must have been a devastating realization. If someone is listening right now and they've noticed their own skin looks a bit different, or they've been feeling more foggy than usual, what are the red light symptoms that should make them stop their supplements immediately and call their doctor? Are there subtle signs that we might be missing because we think they're just minor issues?
Yes, there are several silent signs. One of the most common is digestive upset, chronic diarrhea, or stomach pain that doesn't have a clear cause. Another is what Robert experienced, a subtle change in skin color or even a strange metallic taste in the mouth. But the most dangerous ones are the neurological ones, unexplained irritability, sleep disturbances, or a sudden increase in brain fog. Many people also report muscle weakness or a tingling sensation in their hands and feet, which can be a sign of B6 toxicity or other imbalances. In Robert's case, his confusion was a result of his liver not being able to clear metabolic waste efficiently because it was too busy dealing with the massive doses of synthetic vitamins he was taking. When we stopped his lung support formula, his liver enzymes returned to normal within a month and his senior moments disappeared. He was actually quite sharp. His brain was just being clouded by the chemical burden he was placing on his system.
It's incredible to hear that his confusion went away just by stopping the pills. It's like clearing the smog so you can see the city again. This makes me think about the more is better trap we keep coming back to. Robert thought he was doing the right thing for his lungs, but he was neglecting his liver and his brain. If someone is worried they might be in the same boat as Robert, what is the safest way to test if their supplements are the problem? Should they go cold turkey on everything, or is that dangerous in its own way? And how can they track their symptoms to give their doctor the best possible information?
I always recommend a strategic pause, but it must be done in consultation with a professional, especially if you are on prescription medications for blood pressure or heart disease. The best thing to do is to keep a simple journal for 1 week. Record exactly what you take, when you take it, and how you feel 2 hours later. Do you feel nauseous? Do you feel a heart flutter? Then, with your doctor's okay, stop the non-essential supplements for 2 weeks and see if those age-related symptoms begin to fade. Robert was amazed at how much more energy he had when he stopped his energy-boosting vitamins. We have to remember that our bodies at 70 are like fine-tuned instruments. If you keep hitting them with a hammer of high-dose synthetics, you shouldn't be surprised when the music starts to sound distorted. Listen to the distortion. It's the most honest feedback you will ever get.
Sanjay, I've been looking at the marketing terms used on these bottles, and they are so seductive. Phrases like heart support, immune booster, and anti-aging formula feel like a promise of safety. As a consumer, it's incredibly difficult to walk past a bottle that says vision support when you're worried about your eyesight. But you've mentioned that these very labels can be a trap for the elderly. It seems that the industry uses these broad, positive terms to hide the fact that the ingredients inside, like the high-dose vitamin E or synthetic beta-carotene we've discussed, might be completely inappropriate for someone over 60. How can we, as seniors, become detectives in the supplement aisle? What are the specific red flags on a label that should tell us a product is more about marketing than actual medicine?
You're right, Jane. The language is designed to trigger our desire for a quick fix for the complexities of aging. But immune support is a vague term that doesn't actually mean anything in clinical science. The first thing you have to do is look past the big, colorful letters and go straight to the supplement facts panel on the back. Look for the dosage. If you see vitamin E and the amount is 400 IU or higher, that is a major red flag for most people over 60. As we've discussed, high doses of vitamin E have been linked to an increased risk of heart failure and even death in certain studies. Another red flag is the word synthetic, or DL-alpha tocopherol, which is the lab-made version of vitamin E that the body doesn't process as well as the natural form. If you see beta-carotene in a vision formula, you need to be extremely careful, especially if you have any history of smoking. The marketing makes it sound like a miracle, but the science tells us it can be a liability.
It feels like we are being asked to have a medical degree just to buy a vitamin. It's overwhelming. You mentioned DL-alpha tocopherol. I've seen that on so many labels and never knew it was a synthetic flag. This leads me to wonder about the mega or high potency labels we see so often. To a senior who is feeling a bit weak, high potency sounds like exactly what they need. They want the most power they can get. But you are saying that in our 60s and 70s, high potency might actually be a threat to our kidneys. Why does the industry push these high doses if the medical community is so concerned about the risks for older adults?
They push them because of the value perception. If bottle A has 100% of your daily value and bottle B has 500% for the same price, most people think bottle B is a better deal. But your kidneys don't care about the deal, they only care about the load. In my practice, I've seen that people who take these mega doses often end up with subclinical kidney strain. Their blood work might show a slight elevation in creatinine, which their doctor might just attribute to age, but it's actually the kidneys struggling to clear the excess synthetic minerals. If you see 1,000% or 5,000% of any nutrient, you should be very, very suspicious. Unless you have a diagnosed malabsorption issue, your body simply cannot use that much. It's like trying to fill a teacup with a fire hose. Most of it is just going to create a mess.
That fire hose analogy is perfect. It's a mess that our internal organs have to clean up every single day. If we want to move away from this marketing trap and toward real health, what are the 3 things every senior should check on a label before they even think about going to the cash register? Is there a safe list of ingredients, or is it more about the numbers and the quality of the company? And how do we resist the fear-based marketing that tells us we are failing if we don't take these boosters?
First, check the percent daily value. If it's way over 100% for things like vitamin E, A, or iron, put it back. Second, look for third-party certifications like USP or NSF. These don't guarantee the vitamin is right for you, but they do guarantee that what is on the label is actually in the bottle without dangerous contaminants. Third, look at the other ingredients list. If it's full of artificial colors, fillers, and binders, that's a sign of a low-quality product. To resist the fear, you have to realize that your health is built on the dinner table and the sidewalk, not in the supplement aisle. A marketing campaign can't tell you what your blood work says. Only your doctor can do that. When you realize that heart support in a bottle might actually be a heart burden for someone with your specific health profile, the marketing loses its power over you. Information is the ultimate antidote to the fear they are trying to sell you.
Sanjay, we've talked a lot about what to avoid, and it can feel a bit daunting. I can imagine our listeners sitting at home, looking at their array of bottles and feeling a bit paralyzed. They've spent so much time and money trying to do the right thing, and now they realize they might have been uang theo kamjak, taking things based on a feeling or a hunch rather than a real medical need. It's a common story. I felt a little tired today. Maybe I should take an extra vitamin. But as we've seen, that feeling can lead us down a very dangerous path. How do we transition from that impulsive, fear-based habit to a more disciplined, evidence-based approach that actually protects our longevity instead of threatening it?
It starts with a fundamental shift in how we view these pills. We have to stop seeing them as health candy and start seeing them as metabolic interventions. I think of Helen Parker, a 79-year-old woman from 902 Brookstone Court in Dayton, Ohio. Helen was the pillar of her family, always active, but she was terrified of losing her edge. She started taking a mega multivitamin that she found online, one of those that promises to reverse the clock. She didn't have a doctor's recommendation, she just felt like she needed the extra help. Over 6 months, she started noticing her eyes were a bit yellow, and she felt a dull ache under her ribs on the right side. When she finally went in for a checkup, her liver enzymes were through the roof. Classic supplement-induced liver injury. Helen was shocked. She said, "But I was doing everything right. I was taking the most expensive, most complete vitamin I could find." Her mistake was uong theo kamjak, trusting a feeling of fear rather than her actual biological data.
Helen's shock is something I think we can all feel. To do everything right, to spend the money, to be diligent, and to end up with liver injury is just devastating. It highlights how dangerous the more is better philosophy really is for our generation. If someone is like Helen and they want to stop living by feeling and start living by fact, what are the specific habits they can start today? How do we build a minimalist supplement routine that actually supports our 70-year-old kidneys and livers? Is it as simple as just cutting back? Or is there a more strategic way to rebuild our health from the ground up?
It's about building a foundation of small wins. The first habit is what I call the bottle audit. Every 3 months, go through every supplement you take and ask, is there a documented reason I am taking this? If you don't have a recent blood test showing a deficiency or a specific doctor's order, you should seriously consider stopping it. The second habit is to prioritize whole food first. If you're worried about your eyes, eat more leafy greens and eggs. If you're worried about your heart, focus on healthy fats like olive oil and walnuts. The body handles these much better than a synthetic pill. Helen's recovery began the moment she stopped that mega vitamin. Within weeks, her liver enzymes began to drop and her skin cleared up. She realized that she didn't need a miracle in a bottle. She needed a balanced life. We have to learn that after 60, our bodies crave stability and simplicity, not mega doses of anything.
Simplicity feels like such a relief, honestly. The idea that we don't have to manage a pharmacy on our kitchen counter is a weight off our shoulders. You mentioned the bottle audit, which sounds like a perfect task for this weekend, but I want to ask about the social aspect of this. We often take supplements because a friend said it worked for them, or we saw a testimonial on social media. How do we protect ourselves from that word of mouth pressure? How can we politely tell our friends that we aren't taking that new miracle pill because we are following a more precise scientific path?
You can just say, my body at 70 has very specific needs, and I'm working with my doctor to make sure I'm only taking what I actually lack. It's a powerful statement because it shows you are in control. We have to stop being guinea pigs for each other's anecdotes. What worked for your neighbor might be toxic for you because your kidney function, your medications, and your genetics are completely different. Helen eventually became an advocate for this in her own circle. She told her friends, I almost lost my liver trying to save my health with a pill. Now I save my health with my walks and my salads, and I only take what my blood work says I need. That is the ultimate wisdom of aging, knowing that you are unique and your health plan should be too. Don't let a marketing department or a well-meaning friend dictate what goes into your bloodstream. Trust the data, trust your doctor, and trust the resilience of your body when it's given what it actually needs and nothing more.
Sanjay, we've spent a lot of time today pulling back the curtain on the dangers of oversupplementing, and I think it's been a necessary wake-up call for all of us. But I don't want our listeners to walk away feeling like all supplements are the enemy. We know that as we age, our bodies do become less efficient at absorbing certain nutrients from food, And sometimes a targeted nudge is exactly what we need to stay strong and independent. You've mentioned that there are 4 specific vitamins or compounds that are actually worth considering for the over 60 crowd, but, and this is the big catch, they have to be the right form and the right dose. Can you walk us through these 4 pillars of smart supplementation? What should we be looking for, and how do we ensure we are using them as lifeboats rather than anchors?
You're absolutely right, Jane. We don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. There is a place for smart, evidence-based supplementation. The first is vitamin B12. As we age, our stomach produces less acid, which is required to strip B12 away from the proteins in our food. This can lead to a deficiency that causes fatigue, memory issues, and even balance problems, things we often mistake for just getting old. But you don't need a mega dose. You need a targeted B12 supplement, often in the methylcobalamin form, based on a blood test. The second is vitamin D3. Our skin becomes less efficient at synthesizing vitamin D from the sun, and D3 is crucial for bone health and immune function. However, the key is to have your 25 OHD levels checked. Don't just guess. Taking too much D3 can lead to calcium buildup in the blood, which is bad for the heart and kidneys. It's about finding that sweet spot of sufficiency, usually guided by your physician.
B12 and D3, those feel like the essentials we hear about most often, but the way you describe them as targeted nudges makes so much more sense than just taking a random pill. It's about filling a specific hole, not flooding the whole yard. Now, what about the other 2? I've heard a lot of buzz about CoQ10 for heart health and omega-3s for the brain. Are these just more marketing hype, or is there real science that a 70-year-old can bank on? And how do we know if we are getting the clean versions of these, especially with something like fish oil, where we worry about mercury or rancidity?
Those are excellent questions. CoQ10 is very interesting, especially for those on statins or those with chronic heart failure. There is evidence that CoQ10 can help with cellular energy production in the heart muscle, but it's not a miracle cure for everyone. If you have a healthy heart, you might not need it at all. But for someone struggling with heart efficiency, it can be a valuable adjunct, again, in the ubiquinol form, which is better absorbed. Then there are omega-3s, EPA, and DHA. These are vital for reducing triglycerides and supporting brain health. But here's the caveat. High doses can increase the risk of bleeding, especially if you're already on a blood thinner like warfarin or even daily aspirin. And quality is everything. You want a product that is molecularly distilled to remove toxins and is third-party tested for purity. If your fish oil smells like old fish, it's likely oxidized and could be causing more inflammation than it's curing. It's about precision and quality over everything else.
It sounds like even the good vitamins come with a set of rules. It's not just buy and swallow, it's test, verify, and monitor. This brings me back to the idea of the healthy kidney. If we are taking these 4 B12, D3, CoQ10, and omega-3, are we still putting a strain on our filtration system, or are these cleaner for our bodies to process? And for someone who is already healthy and eating a great diet, is it possible that they don't need any of these? Is there a gold standard of health where the best supplement is actually no supplement at all?
The gold standard is always a body that is getting everything it needs from its environment and its diet. If you are 75, your blood work is perfect, your energy is high, and you eat a diverse, nutrient-dense diet, you might not need a single pill. That is the dream. These 4 supplements should be viewed as gap fillers. They are there to correct a specific biological decline that happens with age. Because they are targeted, they are much easier on the kidneys than a mega multivitamin that contains 50 different things the body doesn't want. When you take only what you need, your kidneys can handle it with ease. My final advice on this is to never start all 4 at once. Introduce 1, see how your body reacts for a few weeks, and always update your medical record. We want these to be tools for your independence, not another set of chains you have to carry. The goal isn't to have the most expensive urine, the goal is to have the most vibrant life.
Sanjay, as we come to the end of this hour, I find myself feeling a profound sense of clarity. We started this conversation talking about the fear that leads us to the supplement aisle, the fear of fading, the fear of losing our memory, the fear of our bodies rusting away. But through our talk and through the stories of George, Margaret, Robert, and Helen, I've realized that the real danger isn't aging itself. The real danger is the silent burden we place on ourselves when we try to fight aging with synthetic shortcuts. We've learned that our 60-plus-year-old bodies aren't broken versions of our younger selves. They are refined, sensitive systems that require respect and precision, not mega doses of marketing-driven pills. It's a powerful shift to move from treating a fear to nourishing a life.
That is exactly it, Jane. We have to stop viewing ourselves as a collection of deficiencies that need to be fixed by a laboratory. This stage of life, this third act, is such a precious time. It's when we have the most wisdom to share and the most perspective to offer. We owe it to ourselves to protect the health we have by being conscious and deliberate. I understand why people reach for those bottles. It's an act of love for their future selves, but I want to encourage everyone to channel that love into things that have been proven to work for thousands of years. A brisk walk in the morning air, a shared meal with friends that is full of color and flavor, and a deep, restorative sleep. Supplements should only be the supporting cast in the movie of your life, never the lead actors. If you can take away just 3 things from today, let them be these. First, don't let fear drive your health decisions. Let data and dialogue with your doctor lead the way. Second, remember that less is often more for your kidneys and your liver. And third, never forget that the most powerful anti-aging tool in the world isn't a pill. It's a life lived with purpose and connection.
Those 3 golden rules feel like a manifesto for a new kind of aging, one that is empowered and clear-eyed. Sanjay, I cannot thank you enough for being here today and for sharing your expertise with such heart and honesty. You've given us more than just medical advice. You've given us a sense of agency over our own bodies again. It's been an absolute honor to have you on Healthy Kidneys After 60.
The honor has been mine, Jane. To everyone listening, thank you for inviting me into your homes and your lives. Please take those bottles off the counter tonight, look at them with new eyes, and start that conversation with your doctor. You deserve a health plan that is as unique and as valuable as you are. I hope to see you all living vibrantly, naturally, and with great joy. Thank you for having me.
And to our wonderful audience, thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the truth about vitamins and your health. If today's episode helped you see your morning ritual in a new light, please consider subscribing to our podcast and sharing it with a friend or a loved one who might be over-supplementing. We have so many more conversations coming up that will help you navigate your 70s and 80s with strength and grace. Remember, your kidneys are the silent guardians of your health. Treat them with the kindness they deserve. Until next time, I'm Jane Pauley, wishing you a day full of natural energy and peaceful clarity. Good night, and take care of yourselves.